Welcome everybody to New Heart, New World. I'm Rasika Manjari, and today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Bhakti Yoga. What is Bhakti Yoga? So maybe a little bit like you, I was a seeker, and still am a seeker, of the truth. I wanted some answers. And my questions fell under three broad categories of why, what, and how. So my question why was, why do I suffer? And my question what was, what can I do about my suffering? And my question how was, how can I alleviate my suffering if indeed there is a solution? Now these questions led me on a quest over many years, and I searched high and low, and of course the answers to these questions were not easy to come by. Until, of course, I came across Bhakti Yoga. Somehow, inherently, I always knew that there was something better. There was something better than my daily experience, something better than what life was offering me. I just somehow inherently felt that and knew that. And I was right. And Bhakti Yoga was the answer. Now, of course, I had millions of other questions apart from those broad categories of three. And Bhakti Yoga actually didn't answer only my main key questions, but all the other millions of questions that came up along the way. So in Bhakti Yoga, I found solace and understanding of what it means to be human. Now, it served as an opening for me to explore more deeply the teachings, the philosophy, the practice and the culture of Bhakti Yoga, and I came to understand that it was the science of us as humans understanding our true identities as spirit souls. But ultimately, what drew me in the most about Bhakti Yoga was, apart from the incredible knowledge that it was giving me, it was that in essence, it was a love affair, a supreme love affair, the ultimate love affair. And that love affair was between the individual spirit soul, us as human beings, and the supreme divine soul, Krishna, as he's referred to in the Bhakti Yoga texts. And also he's commonly known as God. So this connection is the essence of the teaching of Bhakti Yoga. Now, love, you may have realized that in our society, in humanity, and actually beyond, love is a very dear concept to our hearts. We are enamored by love, and we will do anything to get love. And this is actually revealed to us through what we do on a day-to-day basis, because a lot of what we do is motivated by love. Love is a strong motivator, mobilizer, and inspirer. But actually the love that we find on this material plane is actually a shadow of the love that we can find in that connection between us and the supreme divine Krishna. But our hearts are yearning for that love, and we don't always realize it until we have this knowledge of why we're seeking and why so often we're disappointed in love. Because you may also have noticed that love, even though you may have the good fortune of having some very satisfying and harmonious relationships, often love is hard work at the best of times, and in the worst case scenarios, it can be heartbreaking. So this love that Bhakti Yoga speaks of is actually the only kind of love that will satisfy us to the level we need as spirit souls, because it is eternal, it is full of knowledge, and it is blissful, and that is what will satisfy us permanently with no exception. So this is why we go from day to day, and our lives are often full of disappointments, many disappointments here and there, great disappointments, but ultimately it's very difficult to find an eternal state of bliss and happiness. But that is ultimately what we seek. And have you ever considered why we even seek happiness? I mean, why don't we seek sadness? Have you ever considered that? So the reason we seek happiness is because, as the Bhakti Yoga philosophy tells us, that is our true eternal nature as a spirit soul. We're beings of bliss and ecstasy, and that is why we seek happiness in any way, shape or form we can. And we know, I mean, from illicit drugs to extreme sports, I mean, we seek happiness in any way we possibly can, and often it's to our detriment, as we see in the world around us. But this loving affair that Bhakti Yoga speaks of is based on three foundational principles, as are all loving relationships. And I don't speak of only romantic love. I mean, love comes in many forms. And ultimately, when we have healthy, happy, loving relationships, that is when we're most happy. But as we know, they're often fraught with difficulty and trouble. But these three principles that I speak of are the principles of knowing, of meditating on, and of serving. So, knowing. When we know our beloved, the more we know about them, it tends to increase our loving propensity towards them. It deepens our love. And when our love is thus deepened, then what do? We think about our beloved all the time. We can't get them off our minds. And in fact, it's a form of meditation, because we're so engrossed in thoughts of them. And then, of course, when we love them so deeply and we're thinking about them, then all we want to do is make our beloved happy. So we just want to serve our beloved. So these three principles of knowing, meditating on, and serving our beloved apply in Bhakti Yoga. And in fact, that forms the basis of what Bhakti Yoga teaches. And the philosophy is very broad and all-encompassing and far-reaching and all-inclusive. So no one is excluded from the teachings of Bhakti Yoga. And this expansiveness of Bhakti Yoga, in its essence, is bringing us to the realization and understanding that we need to learn, actually, again, what it means to love. What it means to love the Supreme Divine Krishna. Now, love is not unique to us. It's a very universal concept in universes all over the cosmos. However, so it's like an archetypal experience. It's not something unique to us as individuals in our individual situations, or even to our planet, or, as I said, the entire cosmos. It's this universal concept, and it's a borrowed concept, and it's borrowed from the spiritual world, from the spiritual sky, from that relationship between the eternal spirit soul, us, and Krishna. So this borrowed concept is what we're trying to revolve our lives around. It's what we're trying to base our daily interactions and relationships around. However, it will never satisfy us to the level that we need until we first establish that connection with the Lord. Now, it's very typical of humanity to run around in circles doing the same thing, expecting different outcomes. This is just a common experience of mankind. And you may have noticed that because we tend to do the same things, and often things that we expect to work don't work, then as a result there's a lot of trauma and misery and despair, and we can see it in a very heightened way at the moment in our environment, in our world, over the entire planet. And no one is exempt. I mean, we all feel this difficulty and challenge at some level, even though we may live on different parts of the planet and we have different experiences that form us into who we are. So our experiences are therefore different of the difficulty and challenge that surround us at this point in time. However, the common theme is that this world is a difficult place to live in. It's not easy being on planet Earth, especially at this point in time. And the Bhakti Yoga philosophy teaches us that we are here at this point in time because it's meant to be that way. Now, it might sound flippant and trivial on the surface. However, this age that we're in, the age of Kali, which is a teaching of the Bhakti Yoga philosophy, that this particular age, I mean, the world cycles through 4 different ages, and I'll create more videos and explain more in detail about that. But this particular age we're in is the age of difficulty, degeneration, degradation, quarrel, and hypocrisy. So it's meant to be that way. And it might not sound consoling at first, however, it should be, because at some level we're taught that this world that we live in was meant to be tricky. It wasn't meant to be easy for us to go about our day-to-day lives. And the reason is because it's designed to wake us up. It's not our pleasure playground that we'd like it to be. It's designed to wake us up. So because when we are in distress and there's a lot of turmoil around us and we're finding it difficult to meet our needs, then we start asking questions, a little bit like I did years ago. We start asking those questions and we start demanding the answers. And of course, this is where Bhakti Yoga comes in to the rescue. Bhakti Yoga comes in with those answers and gives us the sukoon we need for our hearts so that we can thrive in a way that goes beyond our material everyday existence. We actually start to nourish our souls, to feed it with what it needs. Because even though science, although it can be really amazing at times, it can also serve to distract us by the millions of diversions we can engage in through the many different scientific gadgets and such that we have around us. So the world is not conducive at the moment to spiritual understanding and development, but in a way we're fortunate because of the difficulty, the access to this knowledge is much easier, and we have been given that on a silver platter by the loving efforts of a very saintly personality, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. He came from India to the West and shared these jewels of Bhakti Yoga with us, who were ultimately ignorant of that wisdom of the East. He translated the core, essential Bhakti Yoga texts from the Sanskrit and Bengali into English at first, and now one of the key texts of Bhakti Yoga, the Bhagavad Gita as it is now translated into over 75 languages. So you can see we have ready access to this information and a whole movement which he created that is there to support and guide us on our spiritual journey. So Bhakti Yoga gives us that insight, that clarity, those instructions, and serves as a trigger to our memory, because we are spirit souls. However, it's something that somehow humanity just forgot. We just forgot that we are spirit souls, and it's not the kind of thing we can remember by tying a string around our finger. That's not the kind of jogging of memory we need. We need something that will penetrate our consciousness, that will wake us up, that will answer our questions, and this is where Bhakti Yoga comes in with its guidance. And Bhakti Yoga has been compiled, the text that we gain our knowledge from has been compiled by sages of old who were enlightened beings who understood what it meant to be human, and how being human is actually akin to enabling our connection with the divine over and above our animal and plant and microbial friends. We actually have an advantage in that we have the capacity for high understanding and for decision making and for actually discerning and critical thinking. So all of these things are to our advantage, and Bhakti Yoga doesn't ask us to follow anything blindly. We're here to use our faculties and resources to question and to truly understand at a profound level what its teachings are. So to really avail ourselves to the full extent of these literatures and teachings, we need to be receptive. And in order to be receptive, our hearts have to be open. Now, to give a medical analogy, for example, if we're feeling very unwell and we have been for some time, and we seek medical advice, we go to a doctor to get some support and medication or treatment. Now, we see the doctor and he gives us treatment or she gives us treatment, and we somehow feel worse after that. So we see another doctor, and of course we get many recommendations from many sources, and we see multiple doctors. However, in the end, we're just feeling worse. We feel no better. So what happens in these circumstances? Well, we seek alternative advice. Now, Bhakti Yoga is much like that. It's the alternative advice. However, ironically, there is nothing alternative about Bhakti Yoga. The Bhakti Yoga philosophy tells us that actually Bhakti Yoga, or the principles of Bhakti Yoga, are inherent to being human. They're the natural state of humanity. The practice of Bhakti Yoga is our natural state, our natural propensity. So until, though, we recognize who we are as spirit souls, we can't really open ourselves or be receptive to this quality of teaching. So in a sense, we're in a great position. We're like that sick person because being in the material world is a form of malady, if you like, according to the Bhakti Yoga worldview. And because we're unwell, because we're so distressed in many ways, we seek alternatives. And Bhakti Yoga comes in yet again. So our world is actually a very rich playground for discovering about ourselves and for really exploring the depths of who we are as human beings. And we are so fortunate in many ways that we have access to this knowledge, which in previous times was more secret and attainable, well, accessible to only the chosen few who were qualified in different ways, and who, for example, who were from certain classes of society, or who were Sanskrit scholars, and who were chosen in some way to have access to this knowledge, which was not so readily available to the common person. But now, due to the efforts of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, also known as Srila Prabhupada, we have access to this knowledge easily at our fingertips. So when we're feeling unwell, of course we don't go to just anyone to relieve us of our malady. We don't go to our next door neighbor and expect them to heal us. No, we go to the doctor, and just similarly, we turn to the experts, the Bhakti Yoga experts, who are those sages who compiled those works that we draw from to gain the understanding and knowledge that ultimately is there to enlighten us, to light our way, and to clear our path through the clear sight of those sages of old. Now, one wonderful thing about Bhakti Yoga is that once we assimilate and integrate the key teachings and understandings into our daily lives, and it becomes a daily practice for us, and it becomes just part of who we are, then we also can be custodians of this knowledge and share it with others. And then, of course, others can share it with others, and so on and so on. And so in this way, we can all move towards a new heart, which is a replenished and rejuvenated heart, which can ultimately lead to a new world where we as human beings and our communities and societies identify ourselves and each other not as what we see in the mirror, but as the true spiritual beings that we truly are. So just on a parting note, we have to remember that deep down we are perfect. Now, it might not feel that way sometimes, and when we look at our neighbour, we might not feel that way either sometimes. However, we are perfect in our true spiritual essence. And what Bhakti Yoga does is it reveals this perfection. It takes off those layers of covering that have just sullied our appearances for so long, and it reveals to us who we truly are. So on that note, I'm just going to leave you with a sacred Maha Mantra, which is foundational to the practice of Bhakti Yoga. It's the key way we can connect with Krishna and actually establish that loving relationship. And the Bhakti Yoga practitioner will chant this mantra personally on japa beads and also congregationally with fellow like-minded Bhakti Yoga practitioners or devotees. So I'll chant the mantra now. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this mantra has the power to transform our minds, to transform our hearts, to transform our relationships, to transform our communities, to transform the world. So you might want to take some time to remember the mantra and actually try and integrate it somehow into your daily life. And I will no doubt be creating many more videos on the secrets of Bhakti Yoga, including going into more in-depth about how you can actually incorporate the Maha Mantra into your life. So stay tuned. I would love to share these treasures with you. So until the next video, I wish you all well and bye for now.